Boat shopping can be one of the most exciting and overwhelming parts of getting into sailing. The dream is alive. You're watching videos, scrolling listings, imagining sunsets at anchor. But it's also the easiest time to make a huge, expensive mistake. I've seen a lot of folks, myself included, fall into the same traps when buying their first or even second boat. It's easy to get caught up in the romance and forget the reality that comes with owning and maintaining a floating home. In this video, I'm breaking down 5 of the most common boat buying mistakes I see all the time. If you're in the market, thinking about jumping in, or just daydreaming about your next boat, these are the pitfalls to avoid. Let's get into it. It's easy to fall head over heels for a boat. You step aboard, feel the warmth of the teak. Picture yourself dropping anchor in some remote cove, maybe even imagine a bottle of wine in the cockpit as the sun goes down. I get it. Been there more than once. But that kind of emotional pull can cloud your judgment faster than a squall on the horizon. The truth is, buying a boat should be at least half logic, maybe more. You've got to ask hard questions. Does this boat actually fit the kind of sailing you want to do? Can you realistically maintain it? Is it overkill for your needs? Or worse, underbuilt for what you have in mind? I've seen folks stretch their budget to grab a boat they fell in love with, only to realize 6 months later they can't afford the repairs. Or they bought a gorgeous offshore cruiser, thinking they'd cross oceans, and now it's just sitting unused because they only ever do weekend trips. Love doesn't haul out a hull or pay for new rigging. The best approach is to get clear on your needs first. What kind of sailing are you doing? How much time can you realistically spend aboard? What's your maintenance skill level? Then, and only then, go looking. It's fine to fall in love, but make sure the boat deserves it. Think of it like dating. Just because someone's beautiful doesn't mean they're right for you. That boat might have gleaming varnish and polished brass, but if the deck core is soggy or the wiring's a rat's nest, you're buying heartbreak. Bring a checklist. Have a budget that includes more than just the purchase price. Think upgrades, safety gear, and first-year surprises. And get a second opinion. Surveyors are worth every penny, but even having a trusted sailor friend walk through the boat with you can help keep your feet on the ground. Buying a boat is a big deal. Do it with your eyes wide open, not starry-eyed. Keel choice isn't flashy. It's not the part of the boat that makes your heart race, but it might be the single biggest factor in how your boat handles, how safe it feels, and how much it costs you over time. I've met sailors who swore they'd never own anything but a full keel, and others who turned up their noses at anything without a deep fin. But the truth is, if you ignore keel type, or blindly stick to one kind, you're limiting your choices and possibly setting yourself up for regret. An encapsulated keel is part of the hull, sealed in, often filled with ballast and then fiberglassed over. They're strong and usually require very little maintenance over the years. You're not inspecting keel bolts every season, and you'll likely feel a real sense of security knowing your keel isn't going anywhere. But if you run aground hard and damage it, repairs can be complicated. I've seen folks spend months digging out rust and concrete, just trying to get back to square one. Bolt-on keels, on the other hand, are attached after the hull is molded. That sounds scary to some, but the engineering has come a long way. A bolt-on keel allows for better performance, less drag, lower ballast, more speed, and often easier repairs if something goes wrong. You can unbolt, realign, even replace it entirely, but the trade-off is ongoing maintenance. You'll need to keep an eye on keel bolts, watch for signs of movement, and live with the fact that water might sneak in over time if those seals fail. There's no right answer, just what works best for you. If you're planning blue water passages where help is far away, maybe that heavy, full keel with its forgiving motion is your friend. If you're a coastal cruiser who wants performance and access to shallower anchorages, a modern fin with a bulb might be just the ticket. But the mistake is not thinking about it at all. Too many people buy based on looks or layout, and only learn about the keel when it causes a problem. So take the time, read up, talk to owners of the boats you're considering. Understand how the keel affects your handling, your comfort, and your safety. It's not just a chunk of lead, it's the foundation of your whole sailing experience. This is probably one of the most common traps I see sailors fall into when buying a boat, especially first-timers. You start out dreaming big. You picture palm trees, crossing oceans, sipping coffee on a calm sea somewhere in the middle of nowhere. It's a beautiful dream, and it might happen someday, but building your boat choice around those dreams right from the start, that's where people get burned. What happens is this: folks buy a boat designed to cross the Pacific. Heavy, overbuilt complex systems, blue water gear everywhere. They imagine themselves full-time cruising, maybe even living off-grid indefinitely. But once they actually get the boat and start sailing, reality creeps in. They have jobs, family obligations, health stuff, seasonal weather, visa limits, and plain old fatigue. Suddenly, they're not doing 2-month offshore passages. They're doing weekends in the bay or a week in the Bahamas, and that big ocean-crushing boat becomes more burden than blessing. I've talked to people who sold their blue water boats within a year, just because they realized they didn't need something that serious. They could have saved money, stress, and a whole lot of maintenance by getting a simpler boat, something easier to handle, easier to fix, and more suited to how they actually sail. Cruising plans evolve. What sounds thrilling in the planning stages might feel exhausting or even isolating when you're really out there doing it. The flip side is that smaller boats, or less extreme boats, don't prevent you from going far if you choose to later. You can always trade up, refit, or modify a boat once your confidence and experience grow. But it's much harder to trade down from a massive offshore cruiser when it turns out you don't need all that bulk and gear. So take a hard look at your calendar. How much time do you actually have to sail? Where will you realistically go in the next year or two? Will you be solo? Or with a partner? Do you enjoy long offshore passages, or do you just like being on the water? Buy for what you're going to do, not what you might do. It's a lot easier to enjoy a boat that fits your real life than one that constantly reminds you of goals you haven't hit. You can fall in love with a boat at first sight, but the real test of ownership comes when you're sweating in the bilge, trying to reach a corroded hose clamp behind your water heater, and you will. Every boat has issues sooner or later. Hoses crack, pumps fail, filters clog, and if you can't get to those parts easily, you're in for a world of frustration. Poor maintenance access isn't something many people think about when they're shopping. They're too busy checking out the galley, imagining sunset dinners, or measuring the V-berth for their mattress topper. But once you've owned a boat for a while, you start caring less about comfort and more about access. Can I change the oil without cursing? Can I reach the back of the engine? Can I inspect all the through holes in 5 minutes if I spring a leak? Some boats are designed by sailors who understand this, and it shows. Hatches open cleanly, panels unscrew with ease, tanks are mounted where you can actually reach the fittings. Others are built like puzzles, everything jammed in, wiring hidden, plumbing run behind cabinetry that's sealed shut. I've seen fuel filters buried behind drawers, water pumps bolted behind stove panels, and batteries you need a contortionist to replace. And here's the kicker: bad access usually means bad maintenance. Not because people are lazy, but because it's just too hard. If checking a strainer means tearing apart the settee, you're not going to do it as often. Neglect builds up, systems degrade, and that dreamy boat starts falling apart because everything is out of sight and out of reach. Before you buy, do your homework. Crawl around, get into the engine bay, open the lazarette, pop up every hatch. Ask yourself, if something broke here, could I fix it in an hour? Could I even see it? The best boats make those questions easy to answer. Remember, you're not just buying a floating condo, you're buying a machine. A complex, moving, saltwater-battered machine that demands attention. The more access you have, the more control you keep. And when you're a few miles offshore, alone with your thoughts and a rattling pump, you'll be glad you picked the boat that let you fix things without losing your mind. This is the one that sneaks up on people every single time. You've got your eye on a beautiful boat, you've done the research, and you finally find one in your price range. You stretch a little, maybe even a lot, because you think, this is it, this is the dream. And then reality rolls in like a fog bank, and you realize the purchase price was just the beginning. Boats are not just floating homes, they're floating ecosystems of systems that break, wear down, and age. The upfront cost might look manageable, but it's the hidden and recurring expenses that really test your budget. There's the obvious stuff like sales, rigging, and electronics. But what about haul-outs, yard fees, insurance, fuel, dinghy maintenance, safety gear upgrades, unexpected repairs? If you haven't planned for those, it can knock the wind right out of your sails. I've seen sailors buy a boat and then have to anchor out full-time because they couldn't afford marina fees. Others blew their budget on the boat and then couldn't afford to replace rotted standing rigging or service a sketchy engine. Some even had to sell their boats after only a season or two, not because they didn't love sailing, but because they simply ran out of cash. And the thing is, none of this is rare. It's normal. Boats eat money. It's what they do. You don't have to be rich to own one, but you do have to be realistic. You need to budget not just for ownership, but for sustainable ownership. That means having enough margin for the unexpected. A broken autopilot, a leaking port light, a sudden haul-out because something's growing on your prop that shouldn't be. One of the best pieces of advice I ever got was this: spend 2/3 of your budget on the boat and save the other third for upgrades, maintenance, and emergencies. If you've got $50,000 to work with, don't buy a $50,000 boat. Buy one for $35,000 and hold the rest tight. You'll be thankful when your engine needs a rebuild or your solar array needs replacing. The bottom line? Boats cost more than you think, and even more than that. Be honest about what you can afford, not just to buy, but to own, maintain, and sail. Because once you're out there, money stress can sink the dream faster than any leak ever could. Boat buying should be exciting. It's the first big step toward a life on the water. But it's also where a lot of dreams either take off or stall out completely. The mistakes we covered today aren't rare. They're the ones I've seen over and over again, both in my own journey and in the stories folks have shared with me dockside, in anchorages, and over quiet sundowners. Buying with your heart instead of your head, skipping over keel design, building your plans around a fantasy, crawling through a maintenance nightmare, or emptying your wallet on day one, these are the potholes that can turn a dream into a headache real fast. The good news? Every one of them is avoidable if you go in with clear eyes and a little humility. Sailing isn't about perfection. It's about adapting, learning, and getting out there anyway. And owning the right boat, one that truly fits your life and your budget, makes that journey so much better. Thanks for hanging out today. If you've got any lessons learned from your own boat search, drop them in the comments. I love hearing your stories. Until next time, keep your head clear, your keel steady, and I'll see you out on the water.